often I find that the way we fill in the blank, it's not the kind way. We don't have to go to I am wrong, or I am bad, or I'm not good enough.
In the absence of information, we make up stories. And the stories are almost always what's wrong. People can shift out of that default, something's wrong with me or with you, to, what's emerging here? What's wanting to happen?
Hello, Katie.
Hello, Soph.
Hi. Actually, before we even started, you and I were singing the praises of Abby, who's behind the wall over there that you audience don't see, but she's the third wheel of this particular cart, and we love her and really
But
shout
also,
out.
like a tripod is so much more stable. And,
Exactly.
she really is very much a part of what we do, and such a joy to have met and be playing with Abby. So, Abby, we love you.
Mm-hmm. I can see her face. I love her face when she's surprised and happy. It's like it looks like a 5-year-old,
Yeah.
Thank you. So that was the shout out. Wow. So something happened in a conversation I was having that, again, I was having this moment of like, what is the initial of what would Katie say? It's like WWKS, Wooks. So my friend got a gig he's a keynote speaker, very, very talented keynote speaker. And he went to one last week and he couldn't really read the audience. Like there was light, something was happening. So he couldn't really read the audience. But what was interesting is what he was doing inside of himself that he described as this really mean, kind of critical, they're not liking it and they're not going to respond well. This is not landing. People are not laughing and this whole thing, right? And then, of course, the talk ends at some point and people give him a standing ovation, came to the end to like talk to him. All of them lined up to tell him how wonderful he was and how amazing and transformational, and quoted verbatim.
Little bits of Yes, and we're taking notes, I'm sure. And
the whole thing, like literally one of the people who organized it came and said that they've organized events like this their whole life, never had they seen something land as well. I mean, like not even like they liked it.
Right. It was
They
like,
loved it. And so I wanted to speak of that space between when we don't know something and we make up something.
yeah.
Right? Like that
the absence of information, we make up stuff.
Yes, but why do we make it up? And maybe he did more because of his personal stories. But often I find that the way we fill in the blank is not the kind. It's not the kind way. And I would love to hear, what do we do so it changes? How do we retrain? It feels young. It feels like it's been there. It speaks to us a lot. And I would love to speak of how to retrain this.
Oh, yeah, that's a great subject. Well, there are a couple of things that occur to me as you were saying that, which is, one is that our default wiring is basically no. Our default brain wiring, is keeping things out. So we're just not overwhelmed with all the stimuli and things coming in. And I think we have, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the bias is a negative bias. Where, because of thousands of years of calculating what could go wrong and being able to anticipate that's part of what our brain does. And it was funny, I was just realizing the other day that I no longer do that, having a critical voice. And it was like startling to me, because that's so much of what goes on for people. There's an estimate that we have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and that the great majority of them are negative or critical. But the other aspect of that I wanted to dive into with you is that we operate by giving and receiving feedback. And so much of that goes on underneath our cognitive awareness. And so your friend the first thing I noted when you were saying he couldn't read the audience is that he wasn't able to get that normal
Feedback. Mhm.
feedback that he used to calculate what he was doing and how he would pause and the rhythms of things and what he might use in metaphors that come up. Because when I do my what I call my loop of awareness, which is I'm giving attention to the audience, and then I'm giving attention to me, and then I'm co-creating with them because I'm getting energy from them,
Yes.
which then comes out in what I say. And it was reminding me, I had the opportunity to give a TED talk a while ago, the beginning of February, and they had the lighting made it impossible for me to see people.
Mhm.
And it was very bright, and my whole talk was about loop of awareness.
Oh, no.
So, what was funny was that after the talk, which was very short, I went. It was the only time I've gone into some critical self-talk after something. So this is very interesting because people then came up to me afterwards and said it was wonderful and it was perfect. And because I even said maybe I should do a do-over because now, and so I can really resonate with your friend. And for me, it was, well, I there wasn't the exchange
Yeah. Yeah.
that of being able to be with people, and they're very much co-creating with their energy. And
Mhm.
so for me, if I were to do that again, I would want to have people that I could actually look at, because they would say, you have to sort of look out. You can't even look down because then you'll get shadows on your face. So there was all of these technical things. I said, well, no wonder people don't experience the TED Talks as being, interactive, because they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and my whole way of being with people in transformational work depends on us co-creating together. I mean, just that's a whole other topic. But in the moment, what we can do is, my favorite move is the move. Is
Mhm.
when I can't criticize. And it actually shifts us from critical brain to wonder brain. So in the moment, that's what I do, as I just, and I might wiggle a little bit because I might have gone into some fear, so I let my body unfreeze, and then I'm back in the flow again. But it's very challenging. But it also reminds me of, like, that stuff just happens all the time. We have a plan. This is how I'm going to do it. And then something comes in, and then I need to adjust.
And I'm curious to the need to adjust. I get that we go negative because of the years of, the thousands of years of survival and having to expect that something's going to go wrong. So when the bear comes, you're ready for the bear. Get that.
But ready for the bear if the bear's not even there.
Exactly, exactly. And even if we have now evidence that the bear is not there, we're still operating like it is potentially there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious too, and it's funny because this morning I was listening to a pickleball teacher that I respect, and he was saying, "Be ready for the next ball to be a bang." And a bang in pickleball is what finishes the point. It's like a slam.
Like a
That's
slam.
going to be
Yeah.
hard to. Yes, I mean, if you're a really good pickleball player, you know where to be to respond anyway. But he said, be ready for the bang, which I feel like is a little bit be ready for the bear, not that different. Like this
Yeah.
idea. In this particular case, the assumption, it wasn't like I need to protect myself, there's something unsafe. It felt more like if I don't have evidence that I'm good, then I don't think that I'm good, was interesting, because I feel like he could have guided, and we could guide ourselves in that moment. And I feel like it will be different for him from here on. The fact that this happened and then people loved it so much, I feel like now he has a reference point where he can say to himself, I was wrong. Maybe they don't like it, but maybe they do. There was almost like now he has a place to take himself that has at least one time he was convinced it wasn't going well, and it actually was really,
It was
really
going super well.
Yeah.
I mean, not like it's sort of blown out of the water well.
Yes, exactly. And so That to me feels a little bit different than what you're saying, because I agree that the negative assumption that maybe something is coming our way, I get that. This feels a little more, there's almost like, and different people may have different levels, like different gauges maybe, but it sounds to me like we don't have to go to I am wrong or I am bad or I'm not good enough. Like that feels a little bit different than I need to protect myself against the bear. This feels more like letting the inner unkind, assumption, or the one that's going to hurt me. I'm like assuming something that actually, plus it's not helping me in the moment, right? Like I'm doing the talk and now I'm in my head talking about how I'm not being good, cannot be good for the talk.
Well, I still think that what happened for him was that his way of speaking into and assessing the feedback got interrupted.
Yes.
And and having the lights and couldn't see, and so for me the indicator would be, how else can I get feedback?
Yeah.
In the moment. So like broadening my range of giving and receiving feedback. And also what I've seen over and over again is that in the absence of information, we make up stories.
Yes.
And the stories are almost always what's wrong. Because if there's not information, we go to, okay, something's wrong, rather than, this is interesting. What's wanting to happen here, that's different than, this last thing that I did. Because I was referring to my experience too of being in this theater and I couldn't see anybody. And it was actually kind of ironic because I'm talking about
literally the connection,
and I don't have it, so, that in itself is very funny. But my guess is that this would give him an opportunity to expand his experience of feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, because in a moment like this, if I don't know what's going on in the audience, or in a conversation or at dinner or, whatever situation, asking a question would, like, even if he had said, like, I'm wondering if someone can relate to what I'm saying. Like if you can relate to what I'm saying, like raise your hand or something. And Daddy probably would have seen the movement or the energy or has a way to connect. But I feel like when we are trapped in our own mind and our own judgment, we not that extended to the outside. Like we're not really in the, I mean, we can be like the definitely is one way to reconnect us to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And what it's doing is interrupting and it's shifting back into flow and back into connection, because you're describing a kind of fear.
Yeah,
that he might have frozen a little bit, or he might have withdrawn. Gotten he definitely didn't get fighty in that moment. So my guess it was more of a freeze or more of a flee up into his head.
Yes. Yes.
So this would be a great, like one of the things I did was just feel my body sensations.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a shift to like, here I am. So a shift into presence again. Mm-hmm. So, just feeling your feet. Mm-hmm. Or just making a little shift so that you locate yourself again. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then it interrupts that. But I've also said, I'm making up now that I'm not connecting, or I'm making up a story now about what's going on. And I find that it, particularly in intimate connections, if I go, I'm just making up a story now that you didn't like what I just said, or, I make up a story that you think you know better, and I'm getting a little, but if because what I know is that in the absence of information, we make up stories. And if I can just identify, I'm in my head making up a story about what's going on now, and I wanted to let you know that, and just doing that, you get connected again.
We reconnect. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had an interesting connection, this connection this weekend with my brother, who I think what happened is he felt misunderstood. Like I was asking more questions, to clarify what he was saying. And I think the way it landed was, that he's not clear or which kind of triggered a little bit of attacking energy, in turn. And so this morning, I reached out after the event this weekend, and I said I would love to take a moment to kind of clarify and bring back something that happened yesterday. And I started by saying, I'm making up a story. And I literally just described what I perceived it to be happening. And he agreed. He said, you know what? I did feel misunderstood. And I feel that in my life a lot. And instead of going with your curiosity, I was really triggered. Like he kind of took it like like it was kind of cool. I know it was really cool because I said I'm making up a story, so it was already, I was establishing that I didn't know, that I just was really, I was running it by him.
Well, also you were speaking to your experience. You were saying something unarguable, but rather than saying, you really annoyed me this morning. Or
Yes.
what was going on with you?
Yes.
And I find that it just so valuable to create a reconnection, because you're open. You're also saying you're open to feedback from him. And rather than going into the road, no, it's your fault, no, it's your fault, and then getting into fighting about that, there's something that's really magical about saying, here's what I was making up. And then and it sounds like that just opened the possibility for him to be authentic with you. And how wonderful.
And for us to reconnect, like it felt reconnection. So as I'm saying that, I'm realizing, of course, we can do it with ourselves. If I start doing something in my head, I can, and I've mentioned here a couple of times, I have a friend at the moment who's taken a lot of distance from me, and I'm interpreting that personally. And I reached out and I attempted to, but I can also say to myself, you are making up a story, sister. Like I can totally guide me through a process of, even if it is like in my presence, he gets challenged in a way that doesn't work for him. That's okay.
Well, knowing you, I see that's probably very possible.
There you have it.
There you have it.
It's very funny. I was talking to someone a few days ago and I was like, I don't know if you've been informed, but I'm very direct. And he was like, I like that. Be direct. Of course,
So
when you
that's also, I hear that as you speaking authentically, speaking from discovery, sharing something about yourself that's more vulnerable. And I, just even hearing that from you right now, there's a kind of, there's a melty quality rather than there's usually just such a boundary between people, and you have to kind of prove yourself, or there's this kind of guerrilla stuff that people do, fighty stuff, and that kind of disarming authenticity is just so lovely. And the result that it produced for other people, and also, I think both of us, if we're to assess us, we're kind of formidable.
Formidable. I like that word.
Yeah, and
we are.
Yeah, and so we don't go. Well, just I have something to say, and if is there space for me to no. And so, but letting people know that, rather than springing it on them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And also now sometimes I say, I would like to say something that's quite direct. I don't have to say it, so you can let me know, because I know what it is. So, we should.
It's really lovely. So I heard you just creating what I would call a context. So you're doing, I'd like to share with you. So that's, again, you're like doing a preamble to your story. And I find that it was reminding me of what my cat Greta does, even though she's 11 years old now.
Oh, wow.
And I know. But when she comes, she wants to get on my lap.
Okay.
She will come up and she does this thing with her paw. Each time she kind of, because I'm coming. Wow. And then she will come up onto me, and
she announces,
yes. And it's also a kind of, do I have permission?
With her.
rather than just, pouncing on me. And I was hearing you giving an invitation, that your way of speaking is an invitation rather than, I think people feel, if I'm really direct, but they don't know me, or,
Right.
I want to bring up something that's challenging. If I'm giving an invitation to that rather than just, throwing it at them.
Yeah. Which is interesting, back to reading the audience, which of course we do as well when we're one-on-one. It is interesting for me that I have the deepest of friendship with the most intimate, like there's not an ounce that's not spoken. And then I have relationships that are not that,
Right.
still in my life, and from people I know, I'm not talking, so a waitress in a restaurant or someone with
Right.
which really this is the moment we have and that's it. Like these are friends, like people I spend time with,
Ah,
and the elevator doesn't go as deep,
yes. The elevator. And so assessing where is the elevator,
That's correct.
and are we on the elevator at the same,
Are we at the same level of the
right? Or,
elevator?
are we passing elevators? The,
Yeah. Like
and
a dear friend of mine just lost their father, and I was attempting to have a conversation about his feelings about it, and it wasn't going anywhere. Like the person was very much, you know, "Mm, it's fine, I'm gonna be fine, like very much like pushing it out.
whenever I hear fine, I go, okay, doors
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah, that's it. That's a down the door. Yep, yep, yep. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Because
Yeah.
fine has this energy of like, what is the acronym for it? Feelings inside, not expressed. Fine.
Oh, I love that. Oh, yeah, that's great. And also, I see this so much on British television shows.
Yeah, yeah,
Are you all right? I'm fine. And the way that people say I'm fine is usually that very fighty kind of thing, like, I'm fine, leave me alone. You're picking
yeah.
on me. You know,
Teeth
it's
clench
as
like
if
it has own.
you're making me feel like you're pushing on me,
Yeah.
so when I hear fine, in fact, it's one of those words we could do a whole session on the word fine and the word like, you know
Yes.
and how they occupy so much more room than just those words.
Four little words.
So
Yes.
I feel like, instead of my opinion is,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I'm assessing. So when I hear fine, to me, that's okay, not available.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really helpful. That's really helpful. So it's really, you were talking about TED Talks earlier, not that I want to diss on here, but I really appreciated the way you were speaking of how it's attempting to create some sort of connection, but a lot of the setup, like how many minutes and in what order, and
Right.
and like how regimented that all is,
Yes.
and how not organic that
Right.
versus an exchange in real life where you get to
Yeah.
interact and
Where
play and
you're sharing energy with each other. So, I can definitely, relate to it from that sense, but also the context of the rigidity of what we're taught about how to communicate with others.
yeah,
And especially currently with Zoom has its own context.
yeah.
We're just here in face forward, and you can't even see the rest of my wonderful outfit
I
because it's
know.
always up here. And but the sense of the organic flow of connection has gotten interrupted tremendously, with COVID and the pandemic and being isolated, and now, people being in different camps, and we don't have shared reality. So what I think we're also talking about is how can we bridge? How can and also assess if the other person is available or not,
Mhm.
and then also being able to let that go. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to have the real deep elevator with everybody,
Mhm.
and nor do I have enough time or energy to do that with everybody. So really selecting who are the people that I want to really go deep with.
Yeah.
And what we've said, what Gay and I have said for years, is that you really just need 3 to 5 people in your life
Mhm.
whose faces light up when you come in the room.
Mhm. Mhm.
and those are the deep elevator people. And the rest of them, you can assess, from the
Yeah,
feedback.
you can take rides. You can take rides in the elevator.
Rides, right. Yeah, but you're not going to take Mr. Toad's wild ride with just everybody.
No, exactly. I really, as we closing, I really liked the flavor of this. I understand that we have a lot of negative thoughts, and yet we can really, that curiosity you spoke of earlier, like we can really, I like this notion of like accompanying myself, like when I'm around a kid who's having a tantrum or a hard time, I don't shake them out of it. Like
Right. Yeah, knock it off.
exactly. Stop being a child. Oh, wait, you are a child.
Oh.
Exactly. But this idea of like accompanying ourselves, like
Mm.
it's hard to do in the moment, granted, like if I was on stage with a very,
It just takes practice.
it takes practice. Yeah.
And
I like
I
that you
just
gave us.
love that idea too of being with yourself, because I would just want to mention again how surprised I was to just notice the other day I don't negative talk to myself
Yeah.
anymore.
So it's
And
possible.
it's possible. And it was really like, oh, was reminding me, because I've meditated for over 40 years. And one of the things that they say to you is that you cannot stop your thoughts.
Yes. Correct.
That's not accurate. You actually can stop your thoughts. So
Oh,
I
interesting.
noticed that
You can
about 11.
interrupt. You're saying stop from them even starting?
Okay, you can just stop. You can literally just stop it. It's not like stop it, but you can just go, oh, and let it go, and it will stop.
Interesting.
And I noticed that about 11 years in. So the assumptions that we have about our thinking, I challenge them, and I invite people to challenge them,
Mhm.
because if you practice making that shift into curiosity, and the thing I want to say about that is that when Gay and I first got together, I was pickled in criticism growing up, and so whenever Gay would say, "I notice," I would have this little cringe of he's going to say something I've done wrong, or
Yeah.
that I haven't said correctly, or I haven't been articulate. He's going to criticize me. And in fact, he did for the first part of our relationship. And because we were both so critical, we made a commitment to ending blame and criticism in our relationship.
Mhm.
And it took us about 2 years to do that. But
Wow.
I noticed that when I would shift from criticizing, the commitment that I made was to see Gay as my ally.
Yeah.
So because that was something I could control. I can't control what he's going to say, but I can I can start seeing him as my ally, as on my side, as my
Yeah.
teammate.
Yeah.
And I began practicing that. And I would just make that shift. I'd use the and recommit to seeing him as my ally. And then I noticed after, it took some time of practice, that when he would say, "I notice," I would get curious rather than cringy.
Yeah.
And so to have that actual different result made me really confident that people can shift out of that default, something's wrong with me or with you, to what's emerging here, what's wanting to happen. And so it shifts you from defensiveness to discovery.
That's beautiful. And again, something we can use with ourselves. I am an ally to myself.
Yes, that's where it all starts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vision. Thank you.